This is Legal Edge 6. Get ready to immerse yourself in real-world law enforcement challenges and evidence-based solutions. You belong here, the command center where instructors and supervisors turn the page to expert insights that drive trust and performance in the organizational culture.
The next voice you will hear is fearless and focused, holding you up to your greatness, not your limitations. The mindset shift begins right now.
Welcome back to the Command Center of Legal Edge 6. I am your host, Charles Rambo. Tonight, in Episode 3, we're going in on performance management, on how to sustain the mission with zero tolerance for failure. Now, here is the irony of our subject tonight, in that it correlates with our last week's episode on CompStat Analytics. I've received several calls and emails about how the show ended last week with an accurate yet bold statement that too many agencies today treat dysfunction and incompetence in their agencies like it's part of the benefits package towards retirement. Surprisingly, the calls were not made out of disagreement, but an alignment of people who are now listening to our podcasts and are wanting next steps to holistically find out how to stop this type of dysfunction from being subliminally taught and supervised within inside of their organizational cultures. That's the quality of bold content and the type of call to actions that you can respectively distinguish our podcast from, is that our commentary is about law enforcement performance that holds people up to their greatness. So we continue that same bold narrative on performance management, but this time with a little bit more spiritual insight. As a man thinks in his heart, so is he. From this context, we understand that performance management is a written formal process. However, it really is an evaluation of the internal human behavior that's either failing or exceeding standards. And while checking the box and writing down expectations is easy, what most supervisors fear is human behavior and how the heart and the mind of the employee is receptive to the feedback. So I asked the Socratic question, why are we putting more weight on measuring performance as a rating or a number than taking the courage to engage human behavior up to its maximum level of performance? Why? Because in the end, clutch your rank, you are not modeling your maximum level of competent supervision. So ask yourself right now, what is the condition of my mindset and heart that inspires people that I lead to execute our agency's mission exceedingly and above expectations? So by the conclusion of tonight's podcast, I want you to internalize that in the future, that every time you sit down for a performance review, your rank only represents in neuroscience terms what is called structural authority, the ability to sit at the table. But it is your posture, your words, the expert authority that is the real wiring and firing up of new neurons in the mindset in both you and the people that you lead to do something different. Imagine that in your next performance evaluation meeting, is your voice wiring and firing neurons that are either reinforcing failure or charting an imperative for trust and performance. That is why the plan of action, otherwise known as the performance improvement plan, is vital. It's more than just documentation. It's the strategic contract of accountability that confronts underperformance heads on. While a PIP can also be used as support documentation for adverse action, please stop flying under the radar or using it as punishment. It's the heart-to-heart discussion of defined expectations, backed by measurable objectives and support in zero tolerance for individual or collective mediocrity. That's what I presented before the Georgia Senate Subcommittee on the Fulton County Jail, a structure of how our CompStat unit was now using evidence-based management approaches, holding supervisors and managers accountable for demonstrating the effectiveness of the plan of action, inspecting what was expected through key performance indicators.
And just like here, we have a podium and we have a panel, and we ask the crucial questions for evidence-based management of what was going on up on those floors. We held commanders 100% accountable for knowing about the day-to-day operations, everything from locks to mechanical failures to inmate behaviors, gang awareness. All of these were things that I put into place in 2009. As you will see here on the side note of the addendum, you will see the CompStat program that was put into place that led to 95% or better, 95% or better compliance ratings with the federal consent decree that ended it ultimately in 2015. That's why in our CompStat, and I heard another senator talk about KPIs, key performance indicators, I developed what was called a balanced scorecard, a Kaplan-based scorecard that was recommended by the Harvard Kennedy School of Government when you do CompStat style analysis. And that required for
Key performance indicators are the non-negotiable metrics of mission success, the bold, quantifiable benchmarks on whether your strategy is working or people are just walking around in circles. In neuroscience-based leadership, KPIs are not just numbers on a dashboard. What they are is the pulse check of accountability, trust, and operational excellence. KPIs tell the raw truth about who's aligned, who's adrift, and where the mission is now being highly resisted.
Joining me now, retired Lieutenant Commander at the Fulton County Sheriff's Office, Charles Rambo. Charles, you're very familiar with the Fulton County Jail. So what are your sources telling you about what happened? And for many people hearing this, they're almost thinking, how could this be the fifth time someone has been killed since July? It's not even September until tomorrow.
Well, thank you for having me on this evening. I'm having limited intelligence that's provided to me other than what you guys have received. But I do understand that the incident happened on a maximum security floor that I coincidentally did have the opportunity to supervise back in the day and restored order when we had similar type of violence in 2009 through 2016.
How did you do that? How did you restore violence? Restore from violence?
We restored order by a system called CompStat, where we held commanders totally responsible and accountable for day-to-day operations. You had to know your inmate counts. You had to know their behaviors. You had to know your manpower. You had to know exactly the use of force incidents. And you had to give that in weekly control meetings. And it was a no-nonsense environment where we were under a federal consent decree and actually passed with flying colors in 15 key compliance areas.
There has now been at least all these deaths this month alone. Can this jail be revamped?
Of course it can be revamped. And I can guarantee you it can be done in a very short period of time.
But here was our holistic response. Rather than to punish, we use CompStat sessions, similar to the Japanese model called Kaizen, for continuous learning and improvement. When line staff and supervisors saw themselves in the scope of trust and performance, resistance now turned into a new level of inviting human behavior to success. Hell, people were even coming off FMLA and stopped calling in sick to get on board to this new initiative. Further, the Federal Monitor even attended our CompStat meetings to observe how the KPIs were driving authentic organizational transformation, not in processes, but human behavior wired for evidence-based results. And watch this, even in a very rare appearance by the Fulton County Personnel Board, they came for a special session wanting to know how and why employee disciplinary actions and appeals were drastically decreasing in our agency. Most rewarding the plan of action was establishing a new standard for building a pipeline of new leaders to be, regardless of rank, prepared to exercise decision-making authority on demand. So as we're now moving towards the conclusion, here is your turn in how to use this playbook that you can only get on Legal Ed 6 for sustaining the mission and zero tolerance for excuses by selecting mission-critical metrics, not based in when can you get to it, but the imperative for real-time, right-now performance. Number 2, set baselines and targets. Where are you today? Where do you want to be in 30 to 60 or even 90 days? Number 3, assign ownership and accountability, where people don't compete but align for evidence-based results. And number 4, review and refine. In the wisdom of Joint Chiefs of Staff General Colin Powell, you don't know what you can do until you have to do it. With this wisdom, after this podcast, the next time you schedule a performance conference, you're going to walk in with more clarity, courage, and a performance strategy that's zero tolerant for excuses. Every PIP review, every briefing is now a chance not wasting on checking the boxes, but for you to hold up your teams that you lead, wiring and firing together for excellence in your agency's mission. That's why I am giving you this manual absolutely free. You can now go from read it to lead it simply by scanning the QR code and downloading your free copy. When you're ready to move forward, enroll in our accredited 4-hour course, and you can go to criminaljusticelearning.online to register in a one-on-one or cohort session. Join us next week for episode 4 of Legal Ed 6, where we dive into the art of progressive discipline. Fearless and focused on evidence-based results. I am Charles Rambo, and I'll see you in the Command Center.